Butter's been made in Ireland for millennia. The earliest archaeological finds of butter were found in bogs that date from about 3500 BC. But what we're doing here is how it would have been made by local farmers' wives and housewives. So it's a very simple process. You start simply with double cream. It's put into a glass rotary churn that you can see being used. And you basically beat it until the paddles stiffen up and stop. And then once it gets to that point, it's time to take it out of the churn and put it into the colander. And this is how you solidify your butter and separate out the butter from the buttermilk. So stuck to the paddles there, you can see that there's butter. That's the solid fatty lumps that you can see and round the inside of the churn. So churn of that size, you'd be talking maybe 4 to 5 pounds of butter, and that would be enough to do a large family for a week. So this is the buttermilk that's been separated out from the beating process. And that is your butter. Now the next stage of the process is using the wooden butter hands against the side of the colander, and that squeezes out the buttermilk that's in the butter itself. If that's not taken out, it'll end up going sour very quickly and it will spoil. And nothing's wasted during this process. The buttermilk will then be handed off to the baker, and you can use that for making cakes, you can use it for making soda bread, but traditionally it would have been drank as part of the evening meal. A labourer's dinner would have consisted of a couple of pounds of potatoes and then half a pint of buttermilk. The next part of the process is washing the butter, and this is just to get rid of any buttermilk that may be still clinging inside. And you'd use a cheesecloth for that. So all of the butter will be lifted out of the colander, placed into the centre of the cheesecloth. There is still quite a bit of buttermilk left in there, so it's very, very important that it's taken out at this last stage. And basically what you do then is you bundle up your cheesecloth and you basically tighten the cheesecloth over the top of the colander, and that will squeeze out the remaining buttermilk. So the more you twist, the tighter it gets, and there you go, you can see that there's quite a lot of buttermilk still left in there. And that looks to be about 2.5 to 3 pounds of butter. And now it needs to go for a final wash. So it's dunked into cold, clear, clean water until when you hold it up, you can see the drips coming off are clear and they're see-through. And that's how you know your butter's been properly washed. And that helps solidify the butter inside the cheesecloth as well, because the water is very cold. It gives it a shock. And then we come to the preserving part of the process. The cheesecloth will be undone, the butter will be laid onto the board, and then you add salt. And this is what preserves the butter. If you were to do it unsalted, it'll last probably 2-3 days maximum, even if it's in a fridge. By salting it, particularly in the Edwardian era, it would last a week or more. So that was how you were able to transport it. So you would sprinkle on a good handful of salt. You're talking about 3 tablespoons on one side. Roll it in with your rolling pin, and then you flip it over and do it again. It's actually much more salty than what we're used to today. This butter, if it was done by a large farm, they would have been sending it by train from here to Cork. So you wanted it to survive the train journey. Now you can do this to personal taste as well. If you don't like much salt, don't put much in. If you want unsalted, don't put salt in. But the traditional way of doing this is very much heavy on the salt. And then we're now at the final stage of the process, which is separating it out into 1 pound lumps. And the final product is shaped on these wooden butter hands or butter pats. Now quite often what you will have to do with the pats and the hands is every once in a while give them a good bit of heat from some boiling water. Scald them out there. Gets that one. Okay. And that just makes it easier to form. And the butter then slides off the pats. It stops it from sticking, because you don't want to waste any of this product because you're selling it. So this would have been one of the main ways that the female members of a household would have had money of their own. So once it starts forming into a roll, you then put it back down onto the board and shape it up. And of course, if you were doing this for sale, you'd have a set of scales, weights and balances, so you could make sure that you had definitely a pound. We do have small kilner churns for sale here that people can buy. It's more like our traditional one, so it would be the closest way of doing it, but you can do it with a food processor. If you have an electric whisk, it'll do the same thing, but you just have to make sure that you're using really good quality double cream. If you use single cream, it's no good. So that is how the final product comes out. That would be given a little more shaping once it's sat there to rest for a bit. And occasionally certain farms would have little butter stamps with maybe a 5-bar gate on it, the name of the farm, and they would stamp that on the top, because when you went to sell it at market, people would have a particular farm that they preferred the butter. It was better than the person down the road, or it was better from the guy over in the next county, and you'd buy from that particular farmer, so you were always looking out for their particular trademark stamp. And then certain counties were famed for their milk, so the cream quality was very high. That made excellent butter. Cattle we have here in the museum, the Moil cow, their cream in their milk is very, very high fat, so it makes tremendous butter as well. And what we have there is roughly 2 pounds spot on of butter. To us now, it seems like a lot of work. To them, this was nothing. This was everyday life.